What's up? What's up? What's up? And consistent core this week. Consistent. This is 3, 4 days in a row. Yes, yes. Consistency. Right. So today we got "Let's Get Stoned" by Bill Donahue. It's probably gonna be another short stream. Um, we're just gonna go ahead and hop right into it. I'm gonna do all of my reaction at the end of the video, so we're just gonna watch together, and I'll see you at the end.
Everybody to, is this loud enough to the church here? And we're going to do Let's Get Stoned, okay? And it's good to have everybody here. What I wanted to do is to try, in this last thing that we'll do for a couple of weeks, to take you into a little brief course in biblical symbolism and how that you use, or you'll find if you look and you study it, a constant motif that runs throughout all scriptures. It's not only the Bible, but it's in the, you go back into the Vedas or the Sutras, you know, of Buddha and Krishna, and it all comes out the same way. There's a definite movement, a definite way that the ancients conveyed information that was suitable for you to understand within yourself, as opposed to simply reading words literally. I had a young lady tell me last night in New York that, she said, well, I like also to read the stories literally, even though I know some of the mystical things. That's very dangerous.
There is so much clutter. When it comes to cleaning your Mac, SmartScan and Clean My Mac X knows best.
Never underestimate the power of kindness. But of course, not.
And the reason it's very dangerous is because when you read this stuff literally, then you find and you have to deal with the existence of some.
To everybody eating dinner right now, cheers.
Something called God that chooses a select group of people to be his favorites, that, you know, is unable to forgive unless somebody dies and blood drips all over the place, that is involved up to his neck in the degrading of women, and all of this kind of stuff, which is been a horror to people forever. You have, right as you're sitting here, a terrible war going on because of religion. It's the same old thing. It's Christians against Muslims, lobbing shells at one another, and you know, it's part of this. It's part of the tribal mentality. There's a select group of people that say, we're not going to stand for this, we're not going to give an inch. There's about 5 or 6 people do that. And then you have thousands of people that have to go out and throw bombs at one another who have nothing against each other, and that's the tribal mentality. One of my favorite teachers, as I got into this deeply, is a psychoanalyst by the name of Carl Jung, and Carl Jung says that that's the problem. People have to learn to individuate. You have to learn to be an individual. You have to learn to think for yourself, not as the tribe says. And that's why here there's no, you have no members in the place that we're in here. But what I want you to try to take a look at as we talk about Let's Get Stoned is look at the consistency of the stories in the Bible that you have, and though they vary, they give you a truth. And basically, we use an equation. It's not a mathematical equation, kind of a mystical equation, which is stone to water to wine. Okay. And then we can carry this out a little further, because basically it's it's the physical, okay, to water, which is truth and consciousness, to wine, which is also regarded or described in the scriptures as fire and spirit. And that's basically the equation that holds. And it's an extremely important thing. And when you get through the allegorical and parabolic types of references, it's extremely important because it talks of something that goes on right here inside of you. That's what's so important about it. All the rest are just words, and they describe things, but the consistency of the stories flow from the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible. It all comes exactly the same, and it all is telling the same thing. If you touch a certain part of the physical makeup of your brain, something will happen. Before we get started, let me just show you that the Bible treats, as the ancient scriptures did, at least in this particular section of it, the fact that all life flows, and the movement of life flows through the human spine. And actually, the human spine is called the book of life. This is something that Oh, I knew that would score, but yes.
Anderson's.
They have a doctor in the front row, is a doctor of chiropractic, and so that she loved that. But nonetheless, it's true. Let me, somebody tell me what page Revelation chapter 5 is on, okay? So that everybody can find this, and I'll show you how the book of life is described in Scriptures. 1000. Go to 1005, okay? Okay, the very first verse of chapter 5, Revelation chapter 5. And I saw in the right hand, which signifies that which is the right hemisphere of the brain, okay? Of him that sat on the throne. Him is always the mind, her is always the spirit. Him that sits on the throne is that which is the higher consciousness, okay? A book, which is understanding, written within, that's within you, and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals. And the ancient says that those 7 seals were the 7 chakras of which the energy flew from the lowest part up through the spine, would impact then on that which was the pineal gland of the brain and throw open that which is the right hemisphere. So that's interesting, because that's an ancient Hindu philosophy, an understanding of the operation of the human body, how it works to impact on the pineal or pineal gland of the brain, throwing open the right hemisphere. And it becomes not only a carryover from ancient Hindu religion, winds up in the Bible as what? A description of the book of life. So a lot of people say, oh, is your name written in the book of life? Having no understanding whatsoever of the fact that there is a physical thing that happens when the energy rises up the spine to impact on that which is considered the stone, or which we know as the pineal or the pineal gland of the brain. And doctors today are finding an awful lot that flows out of the pineal or pineal gland of the brain, especially that thing called melatonin. The stone, if you would just take this and put it out on the side, is the pineal or the pineal gland of the brain, which the ancients referred to as the single eye. You see it in many Hindu people, that spot right between the eyebrows. And many of the ancients would say, when you go into meditation, focus.
Now's the time where you tell me everything's going to be okay.
Everything's gonna be okay.
You don't know that, Rosa!
Oh, God. Okay, no, you didn't.
On that spot between the eyebrows to activate the pineal gland of the brain. So touching that pineal gland opens you to truth, from where you are then moved upward to that which is spirit, fire, that which is divine understanding. Okay? It's, in other words, something physical happens within you. Your body is constructed in such a way that if you follow these instructions, this will happen. Animals do not have the same situation that you have. An animal has no ability to judge, I'll do this or I won't do this. You do. You're in charge of it. You say yes or no. An animal doesn't. But an animal's situation kicks in automatically. The animal is pregnant. It's about to have puppies. Bang. Instantly, as soon as it begins, it knows what to do. It knows where to go. It knows what to do. Knows how to break the sac. Knows how to cut the umbilical cord. Knows how to nurse the puppies. Knows how to take care of everything. Because all of this works automatically. A goose in Canada is sitting there. All of a sudden, something happens inside the goose. I don't want to hang around here no more. I want to go somewhere. Where am I going to go? I don't know. Where are you going? I don't know. Let's go. And they all fly. Boom. And they start flying. And they're all getting goosed as they go up into the air, and they're heading south. Where are they going? They never wind up in Hoboken. They never wind up in Pittsburgh. Where do they wind up in Acapulco, because nature instantly kicks in what has to happen. The only difference between the goose or the dog and us is that we have a choice. We can say no to this or we can say yes to it. So let me kind of show you how this works. And now that you've got a little bit of the idea of stone, or you, the physical, water, which is truth or consciousness, wine, which is fire or spirit, now that you've got a little idea of that, let's take a look at a couple of stories and see if you can decode it. And I don't think you'll have any problem with it. Go to page 24. And let's see what this is about. On page 24, if you look in Genesis, you'll be in Genesis chapter 29. Page 24, Genesis chapter 29. And if you look in the very first verse, then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. Bang. You know what it means? You are now casting your net to the right side. Whenever you look north, east is always on the right side. What's being said here is now you are moving to that which is the people of the east, to that which is the thought, the wisdom, or the understanding that comes from the right side. Okay? And he looked, and behold, a well in the field. The well is the source of deep water, deep truth. Okay? The deeper water. Now notice what it says here. He saw the well in the field, and there were 3 flocks of sheep. There's 2 things there. The number 3, which in metaphysics means new life, and sheep mean thoughts. Okay? In the Christmas story, the first ones to see the Christ are those who are keeping watch over the sheep. Those who are keeping watch over their thoughts are the first to see the Christ. Okay? And here then you have 3 flocks of sheep, meaning there is new life through that which will be new thought, because you are journeying from the left side to the right side. You are moving to the wisdom of the east. Okay? So there's 3 flocks. Now, this is what's, when we get into, I think you'll find it's interesting. Notice here. And there were, in verse 3, there were all, well, let's go to verse 2. 3 flocks of sheep, for out of the well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. So in other words, in order for us to get to the water, to be able to water that which is the sheep, what has to be happened? The stone has to be moved. So look at verse 3. And there were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the sheep. Okay? You move the stone, you stimulate the pineal gland of the brain, you touch the source of truth, and there is deep water, and then that water has an opportunity, once you've touched that, to change it into wine. There's an interesting parallel to this too. If you go into the knowledge of each nationality or each culture, there in every culture is 5 stages of consciousness. In Hebrew and Greek, they're basically the same. The first stage is earth, which is your mind. The second stage is water, which is truth. The third stage is air, which is that which is spirit, or understanding total elimination of thought. The fourth stage is fire, which is spirit. And the fifth stage is the new mind. This is actual baptism. Baptism has nothing to do with taking your head and putting it in a lake. Baptism has nothing to do with anybody pouring water over your head. Baptism has to do with taking that which is your lower mind, meditating and raising yourself to the second level of consciousness, which is water, and then rising up into third level of consciousness, which is air, where you are touched by the Spirit. So in this particular instance then, when the stone is moved, when the pineal gland is touched, when it is touched, when it is activated. And how does the pineal gland become activated? By the energy rising up the spine. That's what they call that kundalini effect. This electrical energy rises up the spine, impacts on the stone, which then provides the truth of that which comes from the right side, which is spirit. That's the way it works, okay? So that's our first experiment with the idea that we're going to look at today. The second thing is, let me show you something that's equally as interesting and has to do with the same thing. Let's go to page 62. On page 62, you get to Exodus chapter 17. And now we're getting to the point of the involvement of Moses here, okay? And let's watch here as we look at the basically the same thing. But look what it says. In Exodus chapter 17, look at verse 6. This is God, quote unquote, talking to Moses. Behold, I'll stand before you upon the rock in Horeb. There you shall smite, that means hit, the rock, and there shall come water out of it, and the people may drink. There's the instruction. Same basic. You got the rock or the stone. If you touch the stone, water's going to come out of it. Yourself, your physical. What's being said here is if you'll touch that pineal which is within you, truth will flow into your consciousness. Okay? Now, that's fine. There's a little problem here. The fulfillment comes at a later time. Go to page 136. The rest of you go to the book of Numbers. And let me show you what happens. And this is something you've got to look at very carefully and don't fall into the same problem, because a lot of people in New Age and a lot of people in these different things fall into this, and this is a very serious problem. It's page 136. You're at Numbers chapter 20. Look at verse 11, okay? Excuse me. Numbers chapter 20, verse 11. Okay. And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote or hit the rock twice.
This game, you're not ready for it.
Dream.
And the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank. Okay? That's fine. Moses lifted his hand, struck the rock, hit the rock twice, and the water came out. But there was a problem. And the problem is contained in the very next verse. And it says, and the Lord in verse 12 spoke to Moses, Because you believed me not, you'll not bring this congregation into the promised land. In other words, what happened? Moses was told, touch the stone. That wasn't good enough for him. He did this. Nature says, I didn't tell you to add anything of yourself. Just touch it. Because once you bring something of yourself, you screw the whole thing up, and you'll never open that right side. Now you've introduced your New Age philosophies. Now you've introduced your meditational techniques. Oh, I read this in a book. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try the other thing. It's all totally unnecessary. The instructions are touch it and let what happens happen. And it will happen of itself. See? Because once you add something, then you're waiting for something to occur that somebody told you would happen. Oh, this will happen, and you're waiting for it, and it doesn't happen. You, as an individual, are completely different. She is not the same as he is not the same as you. Each one is individually different. What works for the great guru may not work for you. What works for you may not work for somebody else. You are an individual. All you are supposed to do is touch this and allow yourself to flower. A rose will not become a dandelion. A cat will not become a dog. An octopus will not become a crow. All of these are individual entities. You're an individual entity. And once you touch that, you will flower and you will fulfill as you should. Not the way somebody else expects it. That's why I don't teach meditation, and I don't want people teaching meditation. You have to find it yourself. I think Joanna was a perfect example of someone who had a difficult time, and yet I didn't say to her, well, this is what you have to do, this, I have to do that, you have to do the other thing. You just discipline yourself to sit still and wait. And she did. And then a couple of weeks ago, she had this beautiful flowering within herself. Something moved, something happened, because she had the patience and the discipline just to wait upon it, and it comes by itself. There's a beautiful part in the book of Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon. It says, do not disturb the bridegroom until he awakes. In other words, there's nothing. You can't force it. You can't do anything about it. You just sit and wait. So you see what happened. The promised land is over here. And Moses has said, you can't, because you didn't believe me. You can't see it. What's being said there is you'll never open that right hemisphere of the brain. You'll never bring that flowering of nature into yourself into this new age, which is going to stop all of this wars and all of this carnage, unless you're obedient. Just touch it. Just touch it and let what happens happen. Allow it to flow of itself. Okay? He hit the rock twice. He added something of himself, and you can't enter the holy place in doing that. Let me show you something now. So now you got two instances there. Now, what happened in the first instance? Jacob rolled the stone back and the water came. Here's the second instance. God says, touch the stone and the water will come. Basically, the pineal gland is the stone, and you're being said, touch it and the truth will flow. Doctors, we've got articles from the New York Times back there saying, if you touch this thing, melatonin will flow. Melatonin flows into the body, and it has the ability to You know, I've had people come in and say, well, I don't think I got anything of that meditation. The pineal gland, when it is shut down, when there's darkness, the melatonin flows. You can have a microscopic type of insignificant cancer that's just somewhere, just start, and all of a sudden it gets washed away by melatonin. Who would know? Who knows? Who can judge such a thing as this? But it's beautiful things that can happen if you'll be in tune with nature, if you flow with nature, and if you'll understand these ancient documents which are given to you to be instructive. Now watch what happens here. A little different play on it, but basically I think kind of the same thing. Go to page 216. On page 216, you go to the book of Judges, okay? Page 216, you go to the book of Judges. You get to Judges chapter 6, verse 20. Now this is a strange kind of occult story that has nothing to do with reality, you know. So there's an angel standing out there, and some guy says, hey, you want something to eat? You know, every day there's an angel sitting, you know, give him a little ziti, and he's got them tomato sauce all over his wings and all this stuff. But anyhow, here's an angel sitting there, and a guy named Gideon. You must know him because you can't miss him. Every time you go into a Holiday Inn, he's all, you know, there's Gideons in the drawer somewhere, the Gideon Bible. But the guy named Gideon, this talks about Gideon and an angel. And if you look at chapter 6, verse 20, and what Gideon says, I got some meat here that you can eat. And the angel said, take the flesh and the unleavened cakes and lay them upon this rock. Okay? In other words, what's being said here in a little different way, the angel, which is the inner impulse, understand something about that. Okay? Let's not go. For some of you that haven't been here before, let me just show you something. The word Israel is not a Jewish word. Okay? The word Israel is a combination of three Egyptian gods. The first one is Isis, which is the virgin spirit. The second one is Ra, which is the male. This is feminine, which is the male mind. Okay? When the spirit and the mind are in unison together, Isra, they produce the God El, which means the power within. Okay? That's why the word angel and all of the angels are named Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, Raphael, and all that, because it's talking about an impulse within you. So it has nothing to do with a nationality or a country. I mean, the whole thing, even when I was a kid, I said, gee, well, you know, how come God is prejudiced? How come he's got chosen people? What is this all about? You know, why are some people favorites? The reason the Jew is favored is because, as the Apostle Paul says, a Jew is not one outwardly. A Jew is one inwardly. And if you look at the book of Numbers, let's do that, because there are some, and it's just interesting. I'm going to take you that long. Tell me what page Numbers chapter 2 is on. Numbers chapter 2. What page is that on? 115? Okay, 115. Go to Numbers chapter 2, verse 3. Page 115. You'll see the origin of the word Jew. And on the east side, you see that? Towards the rising of the sun, shall they of the standard of the camp of Judah pitch their camp. What is that saying to you? A Jew is one who pitches their standard, who camps at the right side, at the east, inside. All right? And they are called the children of light. Light. The Jew is the children of light, because you sit at the right-hand side where light and wisdom comes from. See, that's why the wise men in the Christmas story come from the east, because wisdom comes from the right side. That's why the star is in the east, because the light comes from the right side. You see? And so here, the children of light. Now, how do we prove that? It's very interesting. The speed of light is 186,400 miles per second. That's the constant speed of light. Okay? Go with me. You're in Numbers chapter 2. Go down to verse 9. Look at this. How many people were in the tribe of Judah, the children of light? 100,000. See that? And 4,000,000. 4 score is 4 times 20. That's 180,000 and 600. Excuse me, and 6,400. And 186,400 are numbered in the. So there is something being told to you by a cosmic intelligence and saying, this is where the light comes from. If you will camp at the right side, you will find cosmic light. You will begin to flow with nature. Do you think it's a coincidence that the children of light have 186,400 people in it, which is the constant speed of light? That's ridiculous. There's an intent to tell you something here. See? It's like the word Adam. The word atom is actually a play. A-D-A-M is a play on the word A-T-O-M. How do I know that? Because if you remove an electron from an atom, you multiply the energy. So how did we multiply the species? We ripped a rib out of Adam. What's said in the Bible? All life came from the splitting of the atom. What's wrong with that? Makes too much sense. Religion would rather think that God ripped the rib out of this guy and made this lady out of it. That makes sense. I can live with that. That sounds all right to me. Hallelujah, praise God. Amazing grace, how sweet I am. Amazing. What do you do with that? See, this is no good. This makes sense. This is scientifically accurate. Oh, we can't deal with that. Rip the rib out, and you made some lady running around with no clothes on talking to a snake eating an apple. And that's the foundation of your heritage. That's your whole life was built around. I believe that. Pastor said so. I believe it. God bless him. That's the word of God. Jeez. Anyhow, what happens, where were we? Page 216, Book of Judges. All right. Judges chapter 6, and look at Judges chapter 6 and verse 20. So the angel said, take the flesh and put it on a rock. The angel of the Lord put forth the end of his staff that was in his hand and touched the flesh and the unleavened cakes, and there arose fire out of the rock and consumed the flesh. See, here we have the same situation. That which is the flesh, that which is you, is placed. That stone is touched, and then what happens in this particular case? Fire erupts out of the rock. Spirit erupts out of the rock. So here we know that truth comes out of the pineal stone. Wine, fire, spirit erupts out of the pineal stone. But it's the same basic story, a little different play on words. Okay. So now you've got the idea. You've got the idea of the equation of stone, water, fire, spirit, whatever. Let's look at the New Testament. And let's see now, we'll bring it up to date, you know, into the New Testament, and let's see what happens. Go to page 865. Okay. Page 865. And you'll see the very same thing being told to you here in a little different way, but the same thing. Now, if you look at John chapter 2, okay, there was, first of all, the first thing you want to look at, how many flocks of sheep did Jacob water? 3, remember? There were 3 flocks. Look at John chapter 2, verse 1. What day is this? Okay, there you're being told there's going to be a change in life. Something new is going to happen. Something different is going to occur. New life, okay? They're in Cana of Galilee, and Jesus is there, and so forth and so on. Now, this is the point where the water is going to be turned into wine. You've heard that story a million times. Watch it now. Look at verse 6. There were set there 6 water pots of what?
There's nothing more powerful than you making your thing happen. Really.
Stone. And the number 6 represents those 6 nerve centers, the 6 chakras that rise up from the base of the spine, up the spine, okay? What's going to happen is those 6 also represent the past 6 ages, which are empty. Right up to the age of Pisces, they're empty. There's a need for a new water man, Aquarius. And what's going to happen is those 6 empty water pots are going to be filled with water. Right, truth, that's right. The stone, the water, and they're going to be changed by Christ into wine. Okay, same thing. Actually the same thing. There were 6 water pots. Now, it's very important in verse 6, there's water pots of stone. And in verse 7, he says, fill them with water. And then it says in verse 9, the ruler of the feast tasted the water that was made into wine. It brings the truth, water which is turned into wine. From the stone, from touching that which is the pineal, comes forth the water which turns into wine. Inside of you, when you touch this in your meditation, will come forth the truth. You know, what does it mean to come forth the truth? I challenge you, if you've come to this place for any length of time, to sit down and watch Christian television and stay there for a minute and say, what in God's name are these people talking about? The lunacy. And this is where the guy rips the rib out, and then they have a guy falls overboard, and the fish swallows him, and the fish pukes, and an evangelist pops out and says, everybody's going to get saved. What would you do if a guy puked, the fish puked, and the guy come run up? Certainly you'd say, I'm with you. Then you got to sit in the fish's intestines for 3 days, and come out looking like that. He's got seaweed all over. His skin is bleached, and he's got seaweed hanging out of his mouth. And he says, repent, repent. Absolutely, you got me, pal. But you never question this. You never question. When you question this and say, wait, excuse me, Pastor, this is a little bizarre. So these guys in the fish's intestines 3 days, and he comes out. You know it can't happen. Say, you're on the boat. Your boat is yourself. You're paddling your own canoe. As long as you're paddling your own canoe, you're never going to go anywhere. Once you dive overboard and you're floundering in the sea, that means once you take yourself and cast yourself into the depths of your meditation, then the fish, God is always known as a fish, can swallow you. You're in there for 3 days. There's a new life generates through your meditation. And when you come out, then you're able to talk to people. Then you're able to, it's like what Al was talking about. He's able to talk to a guy about homosexuality. Because why? Because he saw in the book the words of Jesus Christ talking about homosexuality. He says, some people are born that way. See? Nobody ever quotes that. This is wonderful. So then you can talk. You can take the burden that's been put. This book is not made to put guilt on people. It's made to lift the burden off of people. See? But that's not what we've done with it. We've prostituted it. We've perverted it because we haven't flowed with nature with it, and we've made up all of these bizarre stories. How grown people with all kinds of degrees and all kinds of college education can sit in these places and listen to this lunacy about fish swallowing people and ladies cuts this guy's hair off and he can't do anything anymore and all of this stuff. Here's 2 naked people running around. A snake gives them an apple, and then this guy's going to cross the sea, and the Egyptians are going to chase after 4,000 derelicts across the ocean. That opens up and never say, excuse me, well, if we go through there, what happens if it closes? No, don't worry about that. We'll just go in. And all this bizarre stuff, never question it. Never question it. Take it as the foundation of our life. This is our religion. And then you get to the point where even in such bizarre stories, you'll say, this is my tradition, my religion, this is the way I taught, this is the way I believe. And all the hell breaks loose all over the world.
That's bad funny.
So anyhow, here we have that change. Stone, once again, Jesus takes the stone water pots of the 6 ages, the water comes flowing through, and then it's turned into wine. That is simply talking about you. When you've reached the 7th age of Aquarius mystically, touch the pineal gland, you'll know the truth, it'll be turned into spirit, and then you're elevated. Now let's go to the ultimate. And this is the last one. This is the ultimate, okay? I want you to look at page 867. Well, you're right next door to here. I want you to see in this that Jesus, whose name, of course, was not Jesus, his name was Yeshua, identifies himself. And there's 2 instances I want you to see the identification. Stop looking at a person. Start looking at something within you. This person, this entity that came to the earth did not come to become a hero. He wasn't here to be a hero. He was here to show you that you're the hero. As Mariah Carey sings her song, there's a hero inside of you. That's what he was talking about. And that's why he said, hey, the things that I do, you can do better than me. Okay, I can deal with that. You're the light of the world. He didn't say you were a worthless sinner and to sing all of these terrible songs. He said you're special. In other words, Yeshua did not come to this earth to show how great he was. He came to show this world how great you are. And that's a wonder. But look what he said, 2 things. And when you recognize what's inside of you, because remember he said you will find him inside of you. John chapter 4, verse 14. Whoever drinks of the water that I shall give shall never thirst. There it is. Okay? Let's look at the next one. Look at page 848 in Luke chapter 12. 848, Luke chapter 12 and verse 49. What does he say? I am come to send. Now, he was not an illiterate. Do you see that word? He didn't say, I have come, or I'm here. He said, I am. He was praying. I am, that which is the I am. If I say to you, who's the President of the United States, you say Bill Clinton. If I say to you, who's God? I am. I am is the name of God. And for that reason, the I am, that which is within me, come that I might have life. So he says, I am come to send fire. So he identifies 2 places, fire and water. Okay? Now let's look at it, and we'll wrap this up with this. We get Jesus in the story, Yeshua in the story, gets crucified. Okay? Good. Let's go on to page 807. And let me show you something. And I think this should wrap it up for you, and you should have a pretty good idea of what I've been driving at for the last half hour or whatever this is. If you look at Matthew chapter 27, okay, now look at verse 60. The death has occurred. Jesus is taken off his cross and laid it, meaning his body, in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out in the rock, and rolled a great stone to the door. Get it? What's inside the stone? Water and fire. Do you understand where I'm at here? And what's going to happen? When the stone is touched, the water will flow, the fire will explode.
If you answered your call, what difference would you make?
Basically, that's what's being said. And when that water flows and that fire explodes, when the stone is right, it had nothing to do with a man laying in a tomb. People, once they go into tombs, they're dead. When bodies are dead, they're dead. Fakakta with it. We don't need it no more. You get a new one. It's like a car. They don't take people that are driving cars to the junkyard. The body is junk. Give me another one. This one's wearing out. I'm going to get a new one. Fine. That's what happened to him. The Apostle Paul says corruption does not inherit, incorruption does not inherit corruption. Dead bodies cannot come back to life again. That doesn't prove anything. Because why? He said the things that he did, you could do. I got news for you. Once you go into the tomb, you know what happens? You ain't coming out of there. You know? And so he couldn't either. But I'll tell you something. Once you touch the stone, then the water will flow. Then the Spirit will flow. Once that stone is touched, once that stone is rolled away, I'm going to show you exactly what happened. What happened to him is the same thing that happens to you. Go to page 807, Matthew 28. Look at verse 2. Behold, there was a great earthquake, meaning there was a shaking down of the way you think. You don't think the way that you used to think. That's one of the things that Christians make such a mistake with. They say, there's going to be earthquakes. They're happening right now. In other words, I am shaken in the way I thought. All of the foundations of my previous religion and traditions have crumbled. I don't think that way anymore. I don't feel that way anymore. I'm concerned about nature. I'm concerned about dolphins. I'm concerned about children. I'm concerned about people. I want to put my arms around everybody. I want to join hands with everything that lives all over the universe. I want to touch a tree. I want to beautifully admire a mountain. I want to flow in a clean ocean. I want to be part one with all of nature. I didn't used to be that way before. And now I'm that way because there's been an earthquake. My consciousness has been shaken down. And it says the angel then comes down, descends from heaven. In other words, that angel, that inner impulse descends from the higher consciousness, comes down into your body and lifts you up. And now you have a new purpose. Now you have a new direction. Now you have a new understanding. Now you have new life. Why? Because you rolled the stone, the water flowed, the fire exploded within you, and now you are part of nature. All that takes itself back to the time when Jacob went to the stone and rolled the stone away to water his 3 flocks of sheep. And remember that this stone stuff happened on the 3rd day. Huh? You see a reason? We've gone through step by step through the Old Testament into the New Testament. See logic, whether you're turning the water into wine out of the stone, whether you're taking that which is the water of life or the fire of life, the Christ, and touching that by rolling the stone away. It all comes to you the same. You have it. You don't have to go to church. You don't have to read a Bible. The stone is in front of the tomb. And when you touch that pineal gland, it's just like what happened to this young lady. When that stone rolls away, the energy comes out. The electrical energy, which is the Christ, comes out. And it starts to activate impulses from the right hemisphere of the brain. And you start to think differently. And you start to understand differently. And healings can flow not only for you, but from people around you. Because you've rolled the stone away. And there's an earthquake. And there's a shaking. And I feel good. And I feel different. From the rock comes the water, the fire, the Christ, and it's inside of you right there. You were made that way. The little goose and the little dog have it happen naturally. You have to choose, will I roll it away or will I let the stone stay where it is? That's up to you. You make the choice. It's yours. The pineal gland, the stone. But you know what? You go into these churches up and down this highway, no way. No way. We're saved. But you know what? The stone's never been touched. The stone is still in front of the mouth of the tomb. The water can't flow. They've rejected that. They've rejected this. They don't argue with me. They don't call me on the phone. Oh, some screwball will call me and he won't identify himself and say I'm a Satanist, I'm a cult. The pastors don't call. The preachers don't call. I documented it. What can I say? But see, they can't change because their Social Security and their retirement and everything is based on keeping this crap flowing. So what can they do? I can't change. I got a job, folks. You know, I don't do this for a living. See? Let me show you something. Page 822. Page 822. And in fact, I would love to sit down and have a discussion with them or a conference or a debate any day in the week. Mark chapter 12. Okay? And look at verse 10. And have you not read this scripture? The stone which the builders rejected has become the head of the corner. The head. If you look on top of the pyramid, you'll see there's no capstone. It's waiting. And finally, when all earth and all life understands, then the capstone will be put in place. It's none there now. So now you have the opportunity. And Jesus gave you a clue. And I'll wrap it up with this. Go to page 781, Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 22. Jesus refers to that very stone that we were talking about for this last hour, whatever the heck this is. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye be single, your body shall be full of light. If you touch the pineal gland of the brain. Now, how do I know that? Somebody yell at me. Tell me what page Genesis 32 is on. Genesis 32. What page is it on? Huh? 29? 28. Maybe you want to read it with me. Jacob touched the stone, and look what happened. Genesis chapter 32. After Jacob had just touched the stone and was enlightened, it says in verse 30. Would you all read this out loud with me? And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Do you need to be a Wall Street lawyer, or you don't need to be? You don't need to be an evangelist. You simply need to know that everything that you need naturally has been placed within you. Touch it, roll the stone, and watch the water flow. And you'll know the truth. And as Yeshua said, and the truth will set you free. And who will it set you free from? Them. And you know who them are. Thank you very much for sharing this time with us. Thank you. And
Introducing Milo's Rewards, the new way to unlock savings from the palm of your hand. With every purchase, our loyalty.
you know, let's look together at something that I think you will find interesting, and we'll finish it up next week.
Well, we've already watched this video right here together, and we're just going to recap Let's Get Stoned by Bill Donahue, right? I pre-wrote some notes. I wasn't sure why I wrote these notes down earlier, but it was before I watched this video with you guys, you know? But I pulled them up because it just worked right out to it with each other, right? So just to go back over what Bill said in the video, right? You're not thinking things into existence, right? So when you go up, right, go up your spine, you touch your pineal gland, and then you go to the right side, the right hemisphere of your brain, right? You would think, or even when you just get up, when you get up to the pineal, right, and you start to have those thoughts in your head, you're not thinking, those thoughts you aren't forcing those thoughts to be a real thing, right? If you go to the left hemisphere, you'll think all those thoughts that you're having are real things, but they're not, right? But if you end up on the right side, it is quiet. There are no thoughts on the right side. There is no noise on the right side. It's completely quiet, right? Now, I'm just going to add a little piece here. Just as science has proven at this point in time, right, that you can hemisync your brain and suggest things to yourself. The same thing with hypnosis, right? You can suggest things to yourself and they can come out and show themselves to you in front of you in this reality, right? And that's just that's just a form of hypnosis, to be honest. But you have the ability to suggest, but your thoughts aren't creating anything. You're just suggesting things to yourself, right? Or you're suggesting things to God that if God could give those things to you. But you could only suggest those things, right, if you're able to get in that state, if you're able to get to the right side of your hemisphere, if you're able to be over there, if you're able to chill in that spot without trying to force a thought through, right? You can get to a point to where when you suggest things in your life, they come to fruition fast, slow, whatever you think. But before you get to that point, right, you must be able to sit in that state, quiet by yourself, on the right side of your brain, the right hemisphere, and just sit in that peace before you start trying to force suggestions on yourself. Because then you start trying to force it on yourself immediately, you get kicked right out, just like he said. Moses tapped on the rock twice. That's you trying to force your thoughts. I got over there. It's quiet. Let's go ahead and start immediately, right? I want to get started immediately. You have no patience. But patience was represented in it. You got to be patient with it. Keep on building upon it. Keep on going over there. Keep on chilling. Keep on being quiet. Don't start asking for stuff already. You just got here. You just got to class. Why are you asking for stuff already? It's like you the new friend in the group, right? But now you think you can tell everybody in the group what to do. Bro, you just got here, bro. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Now, once you exercise your patience and your patience grows, you can begin to suggest things to yourself. Same thing with hypnosis. You see the street the street I don't know what they call themselves, right? But you see the street magicians, the street hypnotists. There we go. The street hypnotists. They're able to suggest things to people. Those people don't immediately. Those people don't take everything those hypnotists say. You've seen several hypnotists try to hypnotize somebody, and then the person rejects whatever they suggest to them because those are just suggestions, right? All they did was put the left side of the brain to sleep. They put the left side of the brain to sleep, and they're like talking directly to the right side, right? And they're able to suggest those things, but those suggestions don't always have to be taken, right? And with you yourself, when if you were to practice this in your own life, you was to be able, at some point you'll be able to suggest things to yourself. That doesn't mean everything is gonna happen immediately just because you suggested it. Some things that you suggest shouldn't happen, right? You know, some people suggest they get into this meditative state and they suggest world massacre or some crazy stuff like that. We don't want that over here, right? But there's some people who have suggested that to themselves and they've gotten it. They've been able to plunder, pillage, and take over all the things. And really don't know why. I'm not gonna lie. I really do not know why that was allowed. I'm not gonna lie. I have no reason for why that was allowed, but it is what it is. Some suggestions are taken, some just suggestions are not. Some people can suggest things to God and be brought here, no matter what kind of things it is, right? But all I want to say is that what I already said. You're not thinking these things into existence. Once you get into that state, once you get to the right side, just be patient. Be patient with yourself. Get to there, exercise a little, exercise the muscle. You haven't used the muscle that often, right? So you get the muscle strong, and then you can start suggesting for real. Then you can start seeing things actually start to come into fruition. Then you, everything just starts to happen for you, right? And a lot of people do this, and then they're like, "Well, I didn't get it immediately. I don't believe in it." Well, bro, you tried one time. You didn't really do it. You thought you were there, but you were just big headed and you said, "Oh, I got here so easily. I can do just whatever I want to." Well, you could probably the first time, but you probably don't know how to do it twice. All right. It's only cool when lightning strikes twice. Right. So, but that's the end of today's reaction. I hope you enjoyed it. Bro, these videos fly by to me. I enjoy watching them so much. Appreciate anybody who stopped by the stream today, and I'm gonna see you next time. Peace. Close. Stop streaming.